A long time ago, in the land of Obelle, where the sun shines bright and the soil is the color of rich kola nut, there lived a young woman named Ajakun. Her name, they said, was given to her by the spirits, for it meant, the one chosen by the rain. Ajakun had a gift so powerful it was said to have been woven into her soul by the rain goddess herself. When Ajakun danced, the heavens would listen, and the clouds would gather, weeping tears of joy and life upon the thirsty earth.
Her dance was not like any other. It was a language spoken to the sky, a sacred conversation between a chosen daughter and her divine mother.
With every twist of her waist and every graceful step of her feet, she would call forth the rain. And it would come, heavy and life-giving, filling the rivers, nourishing the crops, and making the people of Obelle fat with happiness. The sound of her anklets, crafted from tiny brass bells, would echo through the village as she moved, a sweet sound that promised abundance and prosperity. In those days, Ajakun was a girl of simple heart and humble ways. She walked the path the rain goddess had chosen for her, dancing whenever the land felt a thirst, healing the sick with her gentle spirit, and bringing food to all who were in need. Her virginity was her greatest treasure, a precious jewel that she guarded more carefully than any king's gold. She moved through the world with a light step, her laughter as clear and refreshing as the water she brought. But the world, as we know, is a place of good and evil, and even the most beautiful flower can be trampled underfoot. One evening, as Ajakun was returning from the market, her heart full of song and her basket full of goods, she was ambushed by a group of careless men. Among them was Prince Akinola, the son of Oba Adewale, the king of Obelle. The shadows of the trees seemed to swallow her whole as they surrounded her, their laughter echoing a cruel song in the twilight.
They took what was not theirs to take. They stole her innocence, leaving her body bruised and her spirit shattered. Her most precious jewel was gone, and with it, the laughter in her heart. She was a different woman when she finally stumbled back to the village, her eyes like a deep, dry well. Crying tears of dust, Ajakun stumbled to the palace. She fell at the feet of the king, her voice a raw plea for justice. Oba Adewale, your son and his friends have done me a great wrong. Grant me justice, as our traditions demand. But the king, a father first and a ruler second, was blinded by his love for his only son. He offered her gifts, land, gold, and fine wrappers, anything to make her silence this matter. But he would not offer her justice. He refused to hold his son accountable, turning his back on the very laws he was sworn to protect.
Ajakun's tears turned to a fire in her belly, and the betrayal of the king was a wound far deeper. She left the palace and went to the great river, which was still full from her last dance. She stood on the bank and cried out to the sky, her voice no longer a sweet song, but a bitter lament that tore at the very fabric of the air. Rain goddess, my mother, the king has failed me. He chose his son's wrongdoing over the good of the people. If he will not give me justice, then I will not give him rain. I will not dance. Let the crops die. Let the people suffer. For if my king can deny me justice, then I, too, can deny my duty. And from that day, the skies above Obelle grew silent. Not a drop of water fell. The sun, a merciless eye, scorched the earth. The air became thick with dust, the wind carrying the scent of decay. The crops withered to dust. The rivers became dry beds of cracked earth, a graveyard of stones. The people grew weak with thirst, and a great sickness spread throughout the village, a fever that left them weak and trembling.
The villagers, in their suffering, turned on Ajakun, the selfish one. They cried, their voices hoarse, the heartless daughter of the rain. They forgot the good she had done and only saw the pride that had consumed her. They begged her, they cursed her, but she remained unmoved. Her heart was a stone, her pride a wall no one could break. The king and his elders came to her, kneeling before her, offering her anything she desired. But she would always say one thing: "Give me justice." The tradition demands that men who force themselves on a maiden must be sacrificed for their crime. Let the prince and his friends pay the price, or let all of Obelle perish. When the king got home that day, he saw the villagers furiously dragging the prince out of the palace. They were clearly ready to forcefully sacrifice the prince and his friends. But the king was there and he managed to stop them. The people screamed, demanding justice. The king, his face aged with sorrow, looked at his people, then at his son.
It was at this moment that Prince Akinola spoke. He was not brave like a warrior ready to face death, but panicked like a young boy caught in a storm. He fell to his knees before his father, his voice a terrified whisper. "Father, please, don't let me die. Don't let me and my friends die. It was a mistake. We were drunk."
The king, seeing his son's terror, looked at the furious villagers and said, "Go home, all of you. I promise to find a way out of this." His words were hollow, but his voice was firm, holding back the mob for a little while longer.
The next morning, he went to Ajakun, offering her a new path. He offered that she should marry his son, a grand gesture of a king. But she refused. She demanded justice. The king screamed at her, his voice raw with frustration. "I cannot kill my only son because of this mistake. He is the future of this land. How do you want me to kill him? I can't do that."
But Ajakun stood her ground. "We will all die, perish. I will not dance. There will be no rain in this land if I am not given justice." Her words were like the dry wind, sharp and unforgiving.
People continued to die day by day. The village, once vibrant with life, was now a place of sorrow and funeral drums. There was no hope. The king, with a heavy heart, traveled for 14 days and 14 nights. He journeyed far into the bush, into a place they called Zum Zum Forest, a place where the trees themselves whispered secrets and where the strongest native doctor was said to live. The journey was long and full of dangers, but the king's desperation was greater than his fear. When he arrived, he found a man whose skin was as dark as the night and whose eyes held the wisdom of 100 ancestors. The king explained everything, desperate to save his son from the law of the land. He said his son and his friends had made a mistake, and he did not want them to pay for that mistake with their blood. He begged that they should not be sacrificed to the gods. The native doctor simply listened, his face impassive. "Go home," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I will be there before you even arrive. Do not worry. I will call down the rain." He listed the items required for the ritual: 16 he-goats, kola nuts, and many other things, each one with a power of its own.
The king left. When he arrived home, just as the native doctor had said, he was there, standing at the village entrance as if he had flown on the wind.
The king arranged for the items, and the villagers gathered. The native doctor performed the ritual, chanting and dancing with a fury that should have shaken the heavens. But unfortunately, he could not bring down the rain. He turned to the king and said, "You must please the rain girl, for only her dance can bring rain. Her spirit is too powerful for my magic to override."
The villagers screamed at the king, calling him a wicked and selfish man who chose his son over his people. Their fury was a storm, a fire that threatened to consume the king and his son.
They were ready to dethrone him and forcefully sacrifice the prince and his friends. The native doctor of the village was very much ready to carry out this duty. The king was scared. How could he kill his only son? His mistake was made out of a drunken state, the king said to himself. People who do something without clear eyes should not be punished. But he knew he had to do something soon, or he would be dethroned and his son would be killed.
The next day, before the sun even rose, the prince gathered his friends. They went to Ajakun and fell to their knees. The dust of the ground coated their clothes as they begged her to forgive them, saying they did not even know what they did.
Ajakun looked down at them, her eyes like the dry earth. She screamed at them, her voice raw with pain. "I was wronged. My virginity was taken away from me. And all of you know very well that a woman who is not a virgin is very hard to get married in this land. What did you want me to do when my pride was taken away by all of you? You all slept with me one by one. I might have died that day, but I am still alive by the grace of our gods. I only want justice. Is that too much to ask?
In a panic, each of them offered to marry her if that was what it would take. They begged her, asking her to spare their lives, saying that if she pleaded on their behalf, the gods would forgive them. They promised her a lifetime of devotion, but their words were hollow, born of fear. Ajakun's face was a mask of cold resolve. Go home, all of you, prepare for the ritual, for that is the only thing I want. After saying this, she left, her back straight and her heart still hard.
The prince got home that day, tears in his eyes. He found his father and gave his consent for the ritual to take place. The king, still unable to accept killing his son, refused. He said he would find a way out. But the prince said no. I am tired of people dying. I am tired of this dry land. He begged his father to do what was needed, his own voice now filled with a newfound maturity.
Don't you worry, my son, trust me. I will take care of this. I have tried to please her, to even get her married to you, but she refused. Now, I will do things my way, the king said to his son, his eyes glinting with a dangerous resolve. What do you mean you will do things your way? I do not understand what you mean, father. You have tried everything in human power, but none works. You even went to the Zoom forest and spent 14 days and 14 nights there, but still nothing has changed.
Everything is still the same. People die every day. There is no food, no water. I can't bear this anymore. Please, sacrifice me and my friends to the gods and please this land. I don't think anything can save me and my friends. We really did wrong to her and she is not wrong demanding for justice. Do not do anything else anymore. Just grant her the justice. The prince replied to his father with tears in his eyes.
Don't you understand? I cannot close my lineage. You are the only thing I have gotten. The lineage of my forefathers was never closed. Why should mine be closed? You only made a mistake, which I am now ready to correct my own way. Don't worry, this time something will be done.
The next morning, the king summoned his best friend, the second in command. They discussed killing the rain girl. They said if the rain girl is dead, the rain goddess will have no other choice than to choose another. And when that is done, we will have water. The next person they will choose will dance for us. We will all live happily. I cannot kill my only son, the king declared, and the boys discussed how to kill the rain girl.
But unfortunately, the prince heard everything they discussed. Before they could execute their plan, the prince hurried to the girl's hut and dragged her out.
He dragged her and ran through the bush, through the village paths, even when the girl was trying to stop him, trying to find out the reason he was dragging her like that. He didn't stop. He ran, holding her hand, ran and ran. Finally, the girl managed to stop him and said, "Where are you taking me to? Did you want to force yourself on me again?" The prince looked at her, surprised, and said, "You know I am not a rapist. Me and my friends made a huge mistake, and that was because we are drunk."
The rain girl was about to speak again when the prince stopped her. He said, "I and my friends are ready for the sacrifice. But my father, he doesn't seem like he's ever getting ready."
"Listen, you have to leave this land. Your life is in danger. I overheard some people discussing killing you. They said that is the only way to stop this ritual from taking place. They say once you are dead, the rain goddess will have no choice but to choose another maiden who will come and dance for the betterment of this village."
"I don't want you to die. I know I and my friends wronged you. Please leave this village now. Do not return to that hut again. If you do, it might cost you your life." The rain girl ran and ran far away from the land. Meanwhile, the king's guards had already gone to the girl's hut to carry out the king's order, but they could not find her. They searched the village, but she was nowhere to be found. They returned to the palace and told the king that the girl was nowhere to be found. The king was so furious. He screamed, "Where is she now? Where could she be?" The prince, who sat quietly beside him, pretended to know nothing. "Maybe she went to visit one of her friends. I'm sure she's going to come back later. She's never going to remain gone. But why are you looking for her so desperately, father?" the prince asked, pretending to know absolutely nothing. "It's to plead one more time for her to forgive you and your friends, and to beg the gods on behalf of all of you," the king lied. The prince stood up and went into his chamber. He knew his father had just lied to him. But what troubled him was the rain girl. He wondered if she was safe, and he prayed wherever she is, she would be safe. Days passed, and people continued to die. Children died. Diseases were everywhere. There was no hope. The king fell sick, and even the prince also fell ill. So many native doctors came, trying to save them, but it seemed like what was holding them was stronger than their own imagination. Days turned into weeks. The prince and the king were still sick, with no hope for them. At the prince's sick spot, he said to his father, who was lying close to him, "It's not too late. Father, say the word and you will be fine. The people will be fine too. Allow me and my friends to be sacrificed. Everything will be good again." After a long disturbance from the prince, the king finally accepted his fate. He called the chief priest, and the villagers gathered at the sacred shrine. The prince and his friends were tied to a tree, a symbol of their crime and their coming sacrifice. The chief priest raised his sword, ready to cut off their heads, when they heard a loud voice. "Wait," the voice said. They all turned, and surprisingly, it was the rain girl. She stood holding some strange things in her hand. She walked straight and she fell on her knees at the shrine right there, in the presence of the king, the sick prince, who was tied on the tree with his friends, and in the presence of the chief priest and the villagers. She raised the things she was holding and performed some sacrifice, pleading for the gods to forgive their crimes. She cried and she pleaded, "I offer you these items in my hand in their exchange.
Let them be free. Let the land be free." The people were surprised. Even the king who was lying sick was surprised. He could not believe what his eyes were seeing. This was the same maiden who he had offered everything to. Even fell at his knees and begged, but she refused. What could have changed her mind? They all whispered, looking at each other. After she performed the sacrifice of their freedom, she left and went back to her hut without saying a word to any of them.
A few days later, the land was free. She danced on the riverside. She danced and danced and danced, and it rained like never before. It rained heavily. The sick were healed. The land was restored. It was free of disease. On her way back to her hut, she met the prince and his friends. They thanked her for sparing their lives. She smiled and said to the prince, "See me when you are done with your friends. I want to ask you something." She walked away. That same day, the prince visited her. "Great one, you sent for me," he said. She smiled and waved with her hand. "Now tell me, who was it you said you saw trying to kill me?" The prince responded, saying, "I did not see their faces, but I clearly heard them say that. You are lying to me just to protect your father and his friend. I already knew they are the ones. I only forgave you and your friends because you were so kind. Even though your life was at stake, and killing me might have been the only way you and your friends would have been free of me.
But you chose to protect me. You chose to save me even though you know truly well that I want you and your friends to pay a hefty price for your actions. You are a good person, but you have to make me a promise that you and your friends will never drink palm wine more than your body can carry." The prince promised her never to get drunk again, and he also promised to say the same thing to his friends and make sure they would never get drunk again. They smiled at each other. Then she left.
The next morning, the prince, the king, and Onowu came to her hut. They apologized for their actions of trying to kill her. The king said he was only trying to protect his son and his friends, who made a mistake out of a drunken state. He said that there was no other way. He apologized for trying to kill her. She forgave them, saying she bore no grudges against them. Right there, the prince proposed and asked her to marry him, but unfortunately, she refused. She declined his offer. But no man will want to be with a woman without her virginity as a wife, the prince said, his voice pleading. "Don't worry. If I do not find true love, I will stay like this for the rest of my life," she replied. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. She still remained unmarried. All her age mates had all gotten married, remaining her. One morning, she went to the river. She sat down, her leg waving on the water. when she heard a loud scream coming from the bush path. At first she thought she was mistaken. Then the scream came again. "Help! Someone! Please help me!" She slowly walked closer to the bush path where the voice was coming from.
She saw a handsome young man sitting on the floor, holding his leg, crying. He was bitten by a snake. She rushed to him and immediately gathered some leaves and applied them there. Then she took him to her hut. For days the young man lived with her. She learned that his name is Chukudi. He's from the neighboring village. She also learned that he was a farmer and his parents died when he was a little boy. Days passed. He got better and he said farewell to her and left.
Chukudi returned to their land and was not able to forget the moments he spent with her, the way they gisted and talked, her kindness towards him. After weeks he returned to Obelle land.
He found her sitting by the riverside. As soon as she saw him she ran straight into his arms. She was so happy that he came back to see her. They both grew closer and they eventually fell in love with each other. They got married and the king of Obelle sponsored their wedding. He stood as her father and gave her out in marriage. The prince and his friends, villagers, everyone gathered. They were all happy for her.
The rain girl finally got married in a land where virginity did not matter. She always made sure that the Obelle people never lacked water. She would always visit them and dance. Even after she was married, she became a blessing to both lands. The end.